It's going to have to get a vote. The Senate hasn't voted on our proposal nor offered their own. I think Joe Biden realizes his position is untenable, but they're doubling down on it and continuing to throw lie after lie out there. House Republicans are the only party that's offered a solution, and our solution not only doesn't default on our debt now, it takes a step in the right direction.
That was Ohio Congressman Warren Davidson with me earlier in the show on what's next for the debt ceiling raise that is necessary. It has been 91 days since President Biden last met with House Speaker Kevin McCarthy to discuss raising the nation's debt in exchange for some limitations on spending. The Wall Street Journal editorial board out with an op-ed this morning called Chuck Schumer's Debt Default, writing that Senate Democrats are missing in action as the debt ceiling nears. Janet Yellen told us the date is June 1st, when the country can no longer pay its bills. Tennessee Congressman, member of the House Appropriations Committee and chairman of the Energy and Water Subcommittee on Appropriations, Chuck Fleischmann, is with me now. Congressman, where does this go? And what about these efforts in the House by your colleagues, the Democrat colleagues, trying to bring a vote now on a clean debt ceiling raise, no strings attached?
Good morning, Maria. Well, what happened with the Democrats? Fiction after fiction. I sat in the Rules Committee and listened to them for hours, go on and on and on, grasping at fictitious straws. It didn't work. The bill passed. It's a responsible step in the right direction. This ploy will fail by the Democrats, and we'll be right back where we are. What we need right now is leadership. We don't have leadership at the White House. Joe Biden is basically saying he will not negotiate. That's an irresponsible position for any president to take. Chuck Schumer and the Senate is literally dysfunctional right now on a host of areas. So it's up to the House, and House Republicans have stood up, done the right thing. We've got a bill. Ultimately, we will raise the debt ceiling. There'll be some type of a concession made to try to get us on some track towards fiscal responsibility. But the reality is the Democrats got caught in their own lies, and now they're doing what they always do. They pivot back to their infantile tactics. They will not work.
But I don't understand why. I mean, these issues that everybody should be agreeing on. I mean, of course, we do not want America to default on debt. Of course, we do not want markets to think that we can't come up with an agreement on reining in spending and raising the debt ceiling. It's the same thing with the border. Of course, we don't want a wide open border where we don't know who's coming in, and some of them are on the, the list of terrorists, and fentanyl is coming in. What is going on? Why is everything politics?
Well, unfortunately, I think the American electorate is fatigued by the lies, the policies, the horrific spending that we just saw in the last administration with the last Congress, with Nancy Pelosi, Schumer, and Biden coming together and literally piling fiscally irresponsible bills on top of one another. And I really think that the Democrats think the American people don't care. Well, the American people do care. Our 401ks, our fiscal stability, inflation, energy prices, all of the above are affecting this. What it's going to take ultimately is the American people to stand up at the ballot box, be heard, elect fiscally conservative Republicans, and get this country back on track. The Democrats don't believe the American electorate is there. That's why they're going to continue with their fictitious lies, their tactics, until the American people stand up with a resounding no.
Well, so if you're the only adults in the room, what are you going to do to stop this nonsense? You are on the Appropriations Committee. We want to know how you're going to use the appropriations to push back on this craziness, given the fact that we are now dancing with default. Janet Yellen told us it's June 1st when the country will run out of money. What are you going to do in terms of your role in all of this?
Well, right now I'm doing a lot. I'm actually writing the energy and water bill for the Appropriations Committee in the House. We are one of the 9 subcommittees that is actually going to have a reduction, a cut. The 3 that will not are Veterans, Defense, and Homeland Security. Those are the sacred cows. That decision has been made, and the like. That means my subcommittee, along with 8 others, will have to be more fiscally responsible, put up a budget, put up a number that is less than, and we will do that. I told the chairman, give me a number and I will write a bill, and that's what we will do. It's a step in the right direction. Also, I want to be abundantly clear that Social Security and Medicare are safe. The Democrats keep talking about this. Why? Because they want to scare the American people to cover for their fictitious behavior throughout. What we've got to do is stand firm now, take a step in the right direction. And this is only a baby step, but we've got to raise the debt limit. We've got to come up with a budget. We've got to teach the Senate how to be adults in the room and come up and join us with a fiscally responsible appropriations procedure. And by the way, we heard this week that they are actually going to start doing appropriation bills in the Senate. That's a step in the right direction. And I don't know what we're going to do about Joe Biden. Joe Biden is out to lunch. He's fiscally irresponsible. Our allies are just stunned by this. We need to get a Republican back in the White House. But until then, we need to hold on with our 5-vote majority in the House that the American people gave us, be the adults in the room, and lead this country back to fiscal sanity.
Yeah, then I want to know what's going on in terms of the inside information that flows through Congress. New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz are leading a group of bipartisan lawmakers calling for a ban on lawmakers trading stocks. I mean, obviously, you all should not be trading stocks, given the access to information you have. But according to a financial disclosure, Florida Democrat Lois Frankel sold shares of First Republic Bank prior to the collapse of the bank, and she purchased J.P. Morgan stock before the bank purchased First Republic assets on Monday. I mean, are you serious that you've got Democrat lawmaker Lois Frankel selling First Republic stock? What is she doing owning shares of First Republic stock anyway? And then she buys J.P. Morgan right before it acquired the assets? Do you have any knowledge of this?
I don't have any knowledge of this. This is the first you've told me. I think what we need to do is, if there is in fact a stock ban or any other ban, members of Congress will gladly comply with that, as we have done with the plethora of ethical rules that have come up even in the last decade, many of which the American people strongly support and I support. I would say this. If someone is going to trade stocks, they should treat it like a blind trust. Make sure that if you have to take an oath, that you can say that you do not confer with your broker or anybody like that. There needs to be some ethical tweaking of this. I think there needs to be ethical tweaking across government, not only the legislative branch, but the judicial branch, and of course the executive branch. What we're seeing, we need to do this to restore the faith of the American people in our institutions.
Yeah, I think it'll take more than that. But yes, it's a good step. Congressman, we're going to be watching your work on the Appropriations Committee. The power of the purse. Thanks very much, sir. Chuck Fleischmann joining us this morning.